What's up everybody, we're back with another raid guide, and today we're taking a look at Conclave of the Chosen on Mythic difficulty. So I'll be going over most of the mechanics, how to deal with them, and our overall tactic for this fight. If you're watching this, I'll assume you're familiar with the heroic mechanics. If not, feel free to check out my heroic Battle of Dazar'Alor guides. You want 2 tanks, 5 healers, and 13 DPS for this encounter. So, following the theme of the other bosses, it's roughly the same fight as on Heroic mechanically. Everything is scaled up by a lot, and you have an additional Wrath to deal with. Good old Bwonsamdi shows up in the fight and uses Bwonsamdi's Wrath. It curses random players, making them immune to healing. If the target dies or the curse is dispelled, it will jump to the closest target without this debuff. This fight is already very healing intense, and because of this debuff, you can't just brute force heal through everything. During Cry of the Fallen or Paku's Wrath, you'll need to heal the targets you can heal and then let the debuff targets drop a bit, dispel them, and then heal them up, dispel the new targets, and so on and so forth. It's not a major thing, but it can be really annoying, and by the end of this fight there's a lot of players with this curse, making it progressively harder to deal with. So the rule of thumb that our healers used most of the time was dispel it instantly if it gets on a tank. It shouldn't, but it will. Dispel other targets when they're below 50% unless they have a big dot on them or it's during AoEs like Paku's Wrath. Every class that can decurse should at one point or another during this fight, especially during Paku's Wrath. It's okay that the curse bounces around during it doesn't matter. It just means everyone can get healed at one point or another. Other than that, as I mentioned, everything just hits way harder, and paying attention to mechanics becomes a lot more important here because of it. So, how do we deal with this encounter? Well, first of all, you want to decide on a kill order. We went with Gonk, Kimball, Akunda, and Paku for the last one, but some guilds do Gonk, Kimball, Paku, and then Akunda. Our reasoning for killing Paku last was pretty much it's way less to deal with when Paku's the only one that's up. You only have to care about Gift of Winds pretty much. He will deal a ton of tank damage, but seeing as he's the only one up, you can just tank swap on cooldown so he never gets any high stacks during this phase. Having Akunda up as the last one means way less tank damage, but a bit more AoE damage from Akunda's Wrath, and more people needing dispels due to mind wipe. So whichever suits you the most, my money's on killing Paku last though. Other than that, you deal with each individual Loa just like you do on Heroic, but I'll go over how we did it in more detail soon. One thing I want to mention is that depending on when you kill each Loa, when you bloodlust and your overall DPS, the timings and overlaps can and will differ. If, for example, you kill Kimball like say 20 sec before Paku's Wrath, you will probably get Akunda's Wrath during it, which is a bit annoying. So a big thing in this fight is just figuring out where your overlaps will be and reacting to what happens. But I'll go over how our timings were and how we dealt with them and some tips for the encounter. So at start, have your ranged DPS stay loosely stacked in the middle of the room and try and have this position as much as possible during the fight. You only need to run out during Paku's Wrath if you get marked by Kimball, if you get crawling hex or a raptor is about to bite you. Have 1-2 ranged DPS stay a bit outside the range group on opposite sides if possible so that when Kragwa spawns he doesn't jump into the middle. And have a few assigned players for dispelling the bosses and raptors when Paku uses Gift of Winds. If you have mages, they have first pick due to spell steal. Other than that, it's just really important that everything gets dispelled as fast as possible. And during the encounter, as soon as the raptor spawns, you want everyone to swap to them. It's very important that they die fast. They really hurt on Mythic. You also want to try and kite them away from each other. When a raptor gets close to another raptor, they get immune to CC, so no stuns, no slows, which is not awesome. You want to stun them as much as possible unless melee is attacking them. When you stun them, they will fixate on another player. If that player is standing next to the raptor, well, they might just die. You always want to start with the raptors that are closest to whichever boss you're nuking. The other raptors, keep them stunned, keep them slowed, and range just dot them up and kill them off as they get closer. So, at the start of the encounter, you will focus down Gonk. You want to kill Gonk a few seconds before the first Paku's Wrath if possible. It makes other overlaps easier to manage. Other than that, there's really not much to say about this stage of the fight except don't let the raptors run wild. When Gonk dies, Kimball will jump down and roughly at the same time you will have your first Paku's Wrath. And this will also overlap with the Kragwa Wrath, so the big toad. And there's a few ways to deal with the toad during a wrath. Ideally, you want to have the raid stacked in the middle of the circle, one tank at the back and a hunter outside the ring in front of it with turtle or spell warding to bait the frog. However, this only worked like 1 out of 5 times, if not less. But when it did work, the frog would jump between the tank and the hunter and the raid could just stay still. So, due to the fact that this seems buggy as hell, make sure you keep a lookout for the big white swirl on the ground. It can and will jump the raid inside Packer's Wrath. There will always be space to dodge inside the circle as long as you react in time. You can also bait the frog between the raid and a tank. So, raid on one side, tank on the other in the circle. This will result in the raid having to move every other frog, but it might be more consistent than what we did. Either way, don't stand in the white swirlies, you will die. And as soon as the first Packer's Wrath ends, you will have raptor spawns. Finish them off and then burn Kimball. We used Bloodlust as soon as these raptors were down in order to burn Kimball down fast. The amount of tank damage he dishes out is insane, and it did help with other overlaps later in the fight. We made sure to get Kimball down just as we got the second Packer's Wrath. Doing so means no overlaps with Akunda's Wrath during it, which is very nice. And during this, the second Packer's Wrath, you only need to worry about the raptors, so if you have a monk, use Ring of Peace, otherwise just stun any raptors that gets close and then run out. Finish off the raptors and nuke Akunda. Keep running out if you get marked by Kimball, and make sure you move out if you get Akunda's Wrath on you. And when Akunda was around 40-50% HP, we got our third Packer's Wrath. This again overlaps with raptors, so pushback, Ring of Peace, etc. But during it, or by the end of it, you will get a thunderstorm from Akunda. So it is very important that you either tank her on the very edge of the circle or move her out for a few seconds to get it outside. Other than that, there's not much to worry about. Again, finish off the raptors and keep nuking Akunda. We had our fourth Packer's Wrath a few seconds after Akunda dies. You will again get raptors during this, but you will also get Kragwa's Wrath halfway through it. As I said, if you can have a range baited outside the circle, this only worked every now and then, so make sure everyone standing in the circle moves if Kragwa decides to jump there. There's an extreme amount of raid damage going on at this point, and the frog will just kill anyone it hits at this point. And following this, we had our fifth Packer's Wrath when the boss was around 30% or so. During this, you will get raptors and Kragwa's Ring of Peace and bait the Kragwa if possible. After this wrath, you want to finish off the raptors as fast as possible and then burn the boss down before you get another Packer's Wrath. And for you tanks out there, organize your tank swaps beforehand. On pull, you can have one tank tanking Paku until Gonk dies, and at that point you can have Paku tank pick up Kimball and the Gonk tank pick up Paku. You can also use Blessing of Protection on a melee DPS and have that player taunt Paku for a few seconds to reset Paku's stacks. This is something you can use at multiple points during the fight to reduce tank damage if needed. On Kimball, you can either have both tank take 2 stacks each, or one tank take 3 stacks, and you chain cooldowns on that tank, whichever works best for you. When Kimball is down, you can just tank swap between Paku and Akunda when you feel like it to reset Paku's stacks. When Akunda is down, you can pretty much taunt on cooldown to keep Paku's stacks low. And for you healers, make sure you have healing cooldowns set up for each and every Packer's Wrath. We had most of our Cry of the Fallen overlap with Packer's Wrath, and due to this, each Wrath needed a lot of cooldowns, like Spirit Link, Darkness and Trank on the first, Revival, Rally, Barrier on the second one, etc, etc. The fourth one is by far the sketchiest one to survive, so we had everyone use their personal defensives during this, as well as Spirit Link and Darkness. Hit me up if you want our healing notes for this, or become a Patreon and you get access to my Discord where I post all our raid notes and our strategies. On top of this, keep an extra eye on tanks during Kimball. It really is an absurd amount of tank damage at that point. Other than that, as I said earlier, mechanically it doesn't differ too much from Heroic. It just requires a lot more numbers, more boss DPS, more healing, more everything. And I think that pretty much covers everything. Hope this helps you out, and if you have any questions at all, make sure to hit me up in the comments below. And don't forget to check out my Patreon if you'd like to support me and my work with the guides. You will also get access to my Discord where I will post all videos, all notes and other things you might need. Of course, if you ask me, I will still give you notes and weak cards and things like that. But if you become a Patreon, you will get access to it at all times. And as always, if you like these kind of videos, hit that subscribe button, leave me a like and ring that notification bell. Thanks for watching, and I will see you next time.